Palmer Free Radio is here. Thank you again for attending these events. Alaska Open Meetings Act really guides our decision making and our process and our structure. I've been asked why we don't have a persons to be heard section, and part of that is it's advisory, it's not policy making, so according to Alaska Open Meetings and Robert's Rules, you don't have to have a persons to be heard section on the agenda. Abstaining, that was a hot topic at our last meeting. I did follow up with legal, and they said that currently at this time there's the only reason to abstain would be because life happens, right? We're busy people, we get sick, our families get sick, but at some point you do have to vote. So we were able to get some guidance on that. Yes.
So with that discussion last month, there was it was stated that at the following meeting, anybody that wasn't able to make the vote in the meeting, that information would be made public at the following meeting.
Correct.
And last time there were people that abstained.
Mm-hmm.
So can we have, for the record, that information?
Yeah, so we plan on, at the end, when Laura facilitates the vote,
Okay.
if you had abstained earlier, then we're going to ask you for your vote. There are some people who are not here who have abstained, so we'll be reaching out to make sure they're ready to vote at the next meeting. So, yes, Karen.
I have a question. I listened to the school board meeting and they talked about like one of the books last time that I abstained from because I didn't get a chance to read it.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know if we should talk about like a policy so that they maybe don't discuss the books when they don't have the full vote, or do they plan on discussing those books again? Because it seemed like the board members were voting based on what they had at the time, and then if we're going to be giving votes later on, do we have like a procedure for that, or is there a plan?
If I may,
Andrew?
I believe the idea was moving forward, like it wasn't going to be something where we had to reach back to the beginning of, it was a couple of books missed or something, so moving forward from last month's meeting to ensure that everyone had a vote
Yes, so
before submitting to the committee.
right. So as a follow-up, the last meeting, we read the book Identical, and that was the one that I hadn't read. So they did talk about Identical at the board meeting, and I know Member Swanson had made comments about abstaining. So that's where I was like, oh wait, they don't maybe have it all yet, so are they going to talk about it again?
Yeah, that's a good question. We can bring that up with the board and find out. That's not my position or Dr. Everett's to make that decision, but
Okay.
yeah, we
Yeah.
can bring that for sure. Audience reminders, again, Dr. Everett and myself will be available for questions, at breaks, or after the meeting, so we can keep our comments. I know it's hard, you guys are sitting next to each other, if a conversation happens, that's fine, but just as long as it's not disruptive. We'll go through content warning reminder and relevant resources, so Dr. Everett will go through our disclaimer.
Yeah, thank you, Reese Everett, Associate Superintendent. Our content warning for folks here as well as our radio audience. This is a meeting of the MatSu School District Library Advisory Committee. The committee's primary purpose is to review the suitability of book titles which appear or may appear in our district school libraries. The committee discusses the content of the books during these meetings, and as mentioned, these meetings are broadcast live by Big Cabbage Radio. The substance of these discussions may be alarming to some listeners.
Again, relevant resources. I'm not going to go through all these, but for the audience and radio audience and those in person, these are on the website. So if you want any more detail regarding the resources. Our at this point, being 3/4 of the way through the process, this is where your guys' votes break down. So disaggregated by number, 52% of the votes have been retain the book in high school has been your recommendation, and then 39% have been remove, and then there's a couple of ties, high school, middle school, and a retain only at middle school. So that's currently where we're at in terms of your voting as a body. So board update. So there was 4 buckets that they put the books into. Part 1, these books, they had aligned themselves with your recommendation, and your recommendation with these books were 11-0, very unanimous from this body that these books need to go back into schools. So that was their first decision, part 1. You can see the 5 books. Part 2, and I should have mentioned, remanded to administration in terms of appropriate placement. So we have some work to do. Part 2 is very similar. The only difference is these were the 9-2 votes from this group and the 8-3 votes from this group. So there wasn't unanimous agreement on these books. And I think there were 8 books that were in this category, part 2. 3, there was 1 book, and the board agreed with this group that it met elements of criminal obscenity under the Alaska law. And I don't remember if your guys' was a 10-0 or 11-0 vote, but it was unanimous, and they agreed. And then part 4, I think the operative word here is might. It might meet the elements of criminal obscenity under Alaska law. And these are what you would call split votes. So these were a lot of 5-6 votes, 7-4 votes, 6-5 votes. You guys were split on these books. Again, those will be remanded. The last board meeting, March 20th, there was a motion. It carried. It was a 6-1 motion. And again, the board was aligned with your recommendations that Verity and Call Me By Your Name should be removed from circulation. Water for Elephants and Identical is remanded to administration for appropriate placement. Any questions? That's a lot of information. Yes, Melinda.
Melinda Dale, I am wondering if you could define administration for me.
Yeah, so administration would be district level administration. So Dr. Trainee, Dr. Everett, myself, cabinet level administration.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, are you guys ready to jump into March's books? And remember, you guys made the decision 5.
For the extra 2 weeks.
Yeah, for the extra 2 weeks. So we have 5 books to go over. I think you guys know the format. It's 90 seconds, 60 seconds, and just mention your name. Dr. Everett will be our taskmaster. He does a great job of making sure we are on track. So I will open it up to the floor. Comments? Do you guys care about the order?
We have them arranged this way.
The agenda, we're following the agenda.
I don't care, I'm just kidding.
Okay, then I'll just go with what's on the extremely loud is open for discussion. Yes.
I'll start.
Amber.
Amber Ranella. This was my second time reading it, and I truly appreciated the craftsmanship of the story. There are certainly a couple instances where I had to put my statutory brain on, and I don't believe that it violates state statute. And I do believe that it's an exemplary piece of relatively contemporary literature with a lot of quality technique in storytelling. So I will be voting to retain it at the secondary level tonight. High school, excuse me. High school level.
Ms. Kara?
Kara Byerly. This was also my second time reading this. I actually read this in high school myself. So when I went through the questions, I answered yes to question 1, that it does feature sexual penetration. But when I really thought about the prurient interest and I thought about those scenes, which it was sensitive in nature, I don't think it appeals to the prurient interest, no. So I answered no to question 2, and I don't think it violates the statute. I do think this book has mature themes. I mean, it's a book about 9/11, but yes, it's a piece of literature, and it's very well written, and it's an engaging story. It does tell the story of like an older gentleman as well, and his wife, and the perspective taking is it's really engaging to read, but it also talks about war and kind of the romance that you have with that, and then it's your older grandparents, they're talking to their grandson, so talk about life, and that's where it is mature. So I think keeping it at the high school level would be appropriate.
Amanda Cottle. So this was a book where having young kids in the house, I definitely sometimes had to put it down because I was like, it was hard to read if there was distractions in the room for me. It wasn't one I could just like kind of cruise through. Just with the way it was written and stuff, I had to like put it down a few times and be like, okay, we'll try this again later. I definitely feel like there were some scenes where I'm just like, that was definitely more borderline, possibly like meets the statute. But at the same time, with the way it was written, I don't feel like kids under 16 are going to be picking it up to read it or even get very far if they do. Definitely one of those where I'm like, I don't think there'd be any issues with kids over 16 reading it. It'd be again just that borderline of being in high school, the age difference. But again, like I said, I don't think a 14-year-old's going to pick this up and read it. It's one where you definitely have to, I feel like it's not a quick read. It's when you have to sit there, you have to be ready to focus, and it's not all some of just the way the verse is written, or the verse is written. It's just when you have to have that commitment to read it.
Melinda Dale, I agree with comments that have been made, and I would just like to add that I think this is a wonderful book for building empathy for students in high school, and I don't believe it violates the statute, and I'd like to see it retained in high school also.
Andrew?
Yeah, Andrew Shane. I gotta be honest, trying to read the book, I switched to an audiobook there rather quickly because I was having difficulty. Just the way the author writes is very different. But one of the issues that, if I may speak to, is that whether a 14-year-old may or may not spend the time to read it doesn't really matter as to whether or not it meets the statute, right? So I did feel that the scenes in there that were described were rather graphic. There was obviously the sex scenes. There was also some concerning scenes as far as I can't remember the character's name at the moment, but where he's looking for the owner of the key, and there's a woman that he wants to kiss, and then later she actually offers to kiss him, and that's screaming pedophilia to me, which is extremely concerning. No pun intended. I do believe that this meets the statute, and I will be voting to remove.
Ken?
So I also had to not have kids around while I was trying to read this because it does definitely take focus, no question. There are times when it's just confusing. You have to go back and reread and where am I? I feel like, and maybe this doesn't have anything to do with specifically the statute, but I feel like some of the it portrays 9/11. I don't know that it is credence to it, I guess. It just felt like there was some question for me on that, just the way that it's presented. I do think that those couple set scenes in there, that does concern me. I agree. I don't know that many kids would pick it up and follow it. I don't know that we have kids that are that advanced to read this and follow it and not lose interest quickly. But anyhow.
Nathan Buffin. So I thought that there was a lot in the book in terms of the story and whatnot of a boy losing his dad in 9/11 and him processing grief. I thought that there was a lot in that story that was, that's a good type of a story to write in a book form that could be very helpful. The sex scenes, I don't think they contributed anything. I think they were fairly graphic, or at least one of them was. But also, and Andrew already pointed this out, the adult-child thing. I think we have to be incredibly careful anytime you're dealing with someone who's in a vulnerable position, where you have a boy who's grieving the loss of his father, and you're normalizing his process of grief by sexual expression toward an adult and receiving it from an adult. That is very dangerous, I think, to normalize that type of experience, type of behavior, which the book, I think, does normalize it. Very problematic. One of the sex scenes that I do think was quite pure, and I just took a picture of it, so I'm just kind of reading it off my phone a little bit here. It talks about, a lot of kissing, a lot of I want to make love. It definitely is a positive experience within the book, which I do think that would appeal to the pure interest of a adolescent reader. So I do think it violates the statute in that regard.
Any more discussion?
Where
Yes.
Katie sent the reviews. She's not able to be here with some family things that she has going on tonight. This is Laura Richardson, for the record, for the radio audience. I'll just read the book reviews that she shared
by
from
proxy.
Various library association and other librarian resources. So extremely loud and incredibly close. It received 3 awards: 2009 for Outstanding Book for College-Bound students from the American Library Association. Also ALA Notable Books. 2012 movie adaptation was made of it. The interest level is noted to be adult and high school. Subject headings include city life, family life, psychological, grief and loss, and historical fiction. From Book List, a review from February 1st of 2005 notes that it ends with what is undoubtedly the most beautiful and heartbreaking flip book in all of literature. Common Sense Media gives it 3 out of 5 for positive messages. Positive Role Models, 3 out of 5. Sex, Romance, and Nudity, 3 out of 5. And the final paragraph, Is it any good? Katie highlighted that author Jonathan Safran Foer, if I'm saying that correctly, has a marvelous ability to express emotions and tell stories from different points of view. Those of a 9-year-old boy who may be on the autism spectrum, an elderly grandmother who survived the bombing of Dresden, a Japanese man who lost his daughter in Hiroshima, and more. And that concludes the highlighted portions of the reviews.
Thank you, Laura.
Just in time.
I like to push the envelope.
Are we ready to put this to a vote? Okay.
So we'll go through the list like usual. First, voting on whether or not it meets the Alaska statute for indecency, yes or no, and then we'll do our recommendations. Nathaniel Buck,
Yes.
Kara Byerly,
No?
Amanda Cottle,
Yes.
Melinda Dale,
No.
John Deal,
Yes, but it's one of those times again. I hate this. I hate ruin. I was in 9/11. Okay, I was in the Pentagon, and I hate great story being ruined. This crap. Go ahead. Yes.
Amber Ranella, Andrew Shane,
Yes.
Nicole Smith is not here tonight, Kim Swanson,
Yes.
Melody Wright.
No.
And your recommendation, 1 would be to retain at all school libraries, 2, retain only at high school libraries, 3, retain only at middle and high school libraries, or 4, remove from all school libraries. Daniel Buck,
4.
Kara Byerly,
2?
Amanda Cottle, Linda Dale,
2.
John Deal,
The story's got to be kept alive.
Amber Ranella, Andrew Shane,
4.
Swanson,
4.
Melody Wright.
2.
So statute for indecency, we have 1, 2, 3, 5 yes, and 1, 2, 3, 4 no's. 2 people that are not present tonight. For recommendations, we have 3 who are voting to remove from all school libraries, and we have 6 who are recommending that we retain only at high school libraries.
All right, thank you, Laura. So another split vote in terms of obscenity related to Alaska law. Okay, so we move to. Oh yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
It's not related. Well, it's kind of related. Is the administration that you defined earlier, are they considering a policy of 17 and or 16 and up? 17 and up. Sorry. Yeah. 16 and up policy for access to books.
So yeah, so policy would not come from us, right? That would be board action. We can consider ARs, administrative regulations. I do anticipate. I gotta be careful speaking for the board, but I do anticipate that based on this conversation, this meeting, all the attention in our libraries, that there's going to be some revisions of policies moving forward. I think right now some of that's just time, right? There's time and space to do that. Yes,
John, so is the board aware of the dilemma, the statute being written for 16 and below, and yet we're making a decision that covers earlier than 16 and older than 16? Incongruity of that? Are they aware of that?
Yeah, I believe that they're aware of
And we
that.
brought that up at the very first meeting.
Yeah.
This board, God bless you all, you
A
struggled.
lot of time.
Okay? It is an unfair position to be put in. And you get caught in these dilemmas in your conscience. Okay? It really is unfair.
Yeah, again, I'm speaking for them, but and Dr. Everett, you can add into this. I believe they're aware of that distinction.
Right. The problem is you said, I believe.
Yes, and I say that because I'm not in every single board meeting, right? But we have attorneys, and right, there's attorney guidance. But I think we moving forward can make sure we share that sentiment with our board.
And I think the other thing that we should do is whoever, like, whatever district you're representing or wherever you're representing, talk to the person that, you know, if it's a school board member or whatever, talk to them and ask them that question. Make them aware of it at least.
Kara?
Kara Byerly, could we at maybe some point put on the agenda like a letter that we maybe work on collaboratively where we just
Make a motion.
yeah, talk to them about, I don't like making motions. I don't have much confidence. But I like to put ideas out there, okay? Like that we could maybe at one point draft a letter to the board, you know, on behalf of the whole committee that this one is challenging for us and it's maybe something that they need to consider. In the policy, or at least when they are making the decisions, that they also have to be thinking about that too.
Ethan, do you want to put forward?
I would like to put forward a motion that the school board will evaluate and consider some form of policy regarding the 17 and up or 16?
It's 16 and
16 and up issue.
There is a second.
Second.
Okay.
But it really needs.
Discussion? Yes, Amber.
I'm not sure that we get the privilege of dictating what the school board, you know, consider.
Everything we do is a request, and that's I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
So I'm just, you know, throwing my discussion in. I surely would love for it to be documented. This is a true struggle that we have come to with the best of interest and hours of invested time, and it's a genuine conundrum that this diverse body is struggling with.
Would you like me to retract my motion and you bring a written motion next time?
Asking me to
Letter.
I'll do it for you. You just give it to me. I'll read it.
I'd be happy to sign a letter. Yeah.
I would just, you were asked to do further discussion, and I do think, the thing that I've come to the conclusion is I think that the Alaska State statute needs to be
Yes.
updated. And that's about as gentle as I can put it.
Well, that's well beyond the scope of the board.
But it needs to be,
Sure.
it needs to be clear to the board. For elected positions, and that needs to be elevated up. Okay? And the only way you're gonna get it elevated up is if you
Gonna start
write
somewhere.
a proposal.
Any more discussion on the, we just want to make sure we stay with the motion, Melinda?
Well, regarding the motion, I mean, at this point, am I correct in saying that any parent has the ability to decide what their child can check out?
That's correct.
So that is how I make my peace with this. I agree, it's difficult. I have the same struggle. I just tell myself that there are options for parents, and they are the parents. And so, as long as that's in place, I don't have quite as much heartburn as I would otherwise, I think.
Yeah, there's mechanisms.
I think we would also do, there's a side benefit. I agree with you. Absolutely agree with what you said. If they want their 12-year-old to read ugly, by God, they can let them do it. I would question their ability to parent, but that's their decision. But doing this would help provide better guidance for them. There's a side benefit to this. Really seriously consider there's a fundamental difference between a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. There really is. We haven't articulated that. It should help us.
Any more discussion? Yes, Kara?
I think just for the motion itself, I'm sorry that I don't want to do this to you, but I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion. Yeah. Well, just I think the way that you phrased that.
Order, folks, let's stay focused here.
So I just would like to make a motion,
It's just a point where, like, if we can stay on the discussion of the
First motion?
motion before we move to an amendment of it.
I think that's within bounds.
What's that?
It's within bounds.
Within bounds?
It's within
She can amend it.
I think where I'm going with this, let me just, I'll get it out. So I think what you said was maybe tell or like direct the
Request.
board. So I would like to just change that language to write a letter to the board.
Like all of us kind of thing?
Yeah, signed by all of us, maybe with some concerns that we have and a list of solutions. Potential solutions or recommendations, because we are a recommending committee.
Is there any, yes, second, is there any discussion on the amendment? Want to put them through a vote, Dr. Everett?
I have discussion on the motion itself.
Just to try and follow a process, if there's no further discussion on the amendment, is there any opposition to the amendment?
I'm uncomfortable a little bit with the provide a list of solutions. I think that goes a little bit beyond the scope of this, and that's also a very tedious thing that probably wouldn't go anywhere because they would do their own solutions. So I would suggest retracting that, or I can amend the amendment.
Well, I will comment, this is Kara, I disagree.
Okay,
I am a problem solution person, so I don't like bringing problems to the board without a solution. Without potential solutions that they can consider, of course, they're gonna make up their own mind, so I'm not telling them the answer.
Sure.
But I do think we're a well-educated group of individuals here, and we can give them some ideas, some solid ideas that they can use.
More discussion on the amendment before we vote.
In favor of the amendment, show of hands. In favor of the amendment? Opposed to the amendment?
4.
5-4.
Amendment passes. Back the original motion with the amendment added. I have the language in front of me.
I'm working on it.
Requesting to the board.
So with the amendment, the motion is, to Good thing we have this being recorded, so we can go back and, the amendment, the motion with the amendment is that this group, this advisory committee will write a letter outlining the concerns, related to the Alaska statute applying to students ages 16 and under, when we have a lot of students that are above that age category, and to also make sure to offer some potential solutions in that letter that would be agreed upon and signed by this group.
For that,
Point of information, 16 and up, 15 and under, correct?
Let me get the statute
The
out.
statute is 16 and above.
16.
16 is inclusive of
Under 16.
under 16. Thank you, Dr. Andrew, that's a much more simple way of saying it. And then Jane, I think, had a wish to speak to the motion now.
I simply would hope that everyone on this board recognizes, and I understand everyone's passion towards it. I also feel like there's a huge difference between 14, 15, 17, and 18. I know that there are changes there, but something that should be considered is that when we allow books that meet a statute of indecent material for 16 or for under 16, into the libraries, we not only expose our librarians to potential of other kids getting the books, and now where does that fall? Is the librarian end up being held accountable for giving indecent material to a minor? Is there going to be accountability on that? Is there going to be some concern about now we have a indecent materials area in our kids' libraries? We're talking about that idea or that mindset that Colleen Hoover books should go ahead and be in the school libraries as long as they're in a section that's over here, right? I understand that, yes, we could try and filter those things now, but tomorrow, all of a sudden, there's more Colleen Hoover books that didn't get reviewed that are allowed in the libraries, but in a different section, and it's okay. I don't think that that's something that we should be doing. I would be fine with making a motion to the board, or making a motion that we mention to the board. It might be worth considering our 16 and above, and do with that what you will, but I'm not okay with suggesting what we should or shouldn't do, because they are having to balance more than just one person's opinion or one person's train of thought, right? And where that comes in with the law can get really tricky and be painted with broad strokes.
Their discussion on the motion?
And I think the other thing,
Ms.
Ms.
Kim?
Watson, I think the other thing is that a lot of these, maybe board members or whatever wouldn't have read the book, so like it's not, they're not working with a full understanding of what they're making a decision on in a sense. Obviously they'd have to go back and read it if that was the case, but.
for the question.
Yes, Nathan.
Nathan, call for the question.
Which, as a friendly reminder, means he is proposing we in debate and vote on the motion on the floor.
Apologies for coming late. Katie Clark, can you repeat the motion?
Motion, Laura, please repeat the motion.
So the motion is that this group, this advisory group, compose and submit a letter to the school board outlining concerns and challenges that have been faced with the fact that the Alaska statute applies to, please help me here?
16
Under 16.
Under 16, and that we have a lot of students where removing a book impacts all those students who are over 16, basically. And so the amendment, the motion is to compose a letter outlining the concerns and the challenges and offer a list of potential solutions that would be shared by this committee, the board, shared with the board.
To the question usually means it halts discussion, but can I make a comment, or do I need to wait until we vote on whether or not we're going to vote?
Calling the question does require a second
Second.
and a vote.
Second.
So I guess to follow procedure, Mr. Buck called the question. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor of ending debate, show of hands. Opposed? The motion remains on the floor.
Thank you. I thought about this a lot. Because, this is a really important idea. And I recently spent some time in an elementary school library. And I was helping clear out old books and catalog new books, and I had a moment where I paused and I said, what if we only had books in this library that were appropriate for everyone, which would mean we would only have books appropriate for kindergarten. I just sat with that for a minute and I thought, if we only had books appropriate for kindergarten, which would be appropriate for everyone, we'd lose a lot of readers. Fifth grader, there wouldn't be anything in there for him. He's done with kindergarten books. You know, my second grader, he's unfortunately almost done with picture books. My heart, but I just thought, how so sad for them if that's how we ran our school libraries. Really important that we have books for everyone in our libraries.
I would add, just point of information, your library is unique in terms of it's a K-12 audience, right?
Right, but
most of our schools
my
are.
point being, if we're going to make a determination for high school libraries, then it would be that idea. That's the idea.
I don't think anybody is making the case that we have to have only books that are suitable for everybody, but I think what we are saying is that there are some books that are not suitable for this demographic. Personally, I would go so far as saying some books just aren't suitable, period. But nobody's making the argument that we have to have in our libraries only that which is suitable for everybody. I think that is a gross misrepresentation. I think it would be highly, highly inappropriate to have in any school library a graphic depiction like a Playboy magazine, something like that. That would meet some people's interest. That would get some people reading. That would get some people getting library cards. Scratch some people's ear. Don't matter. Does not belong anywhere near a school library. So no one's making the case that we have to have only what is suitable for everybody, but there are some things that are not suitable for schools. That's what the case is being made.
So Kim had her hand raised, then Amanda.
I was just going to say, like you were saying, appropriate for kindergarten. I also think that that's a little bit of a drastic thought process because we're not just looking for something just appropriate for kindergarten, but there's plenty of appropriate books that can be. And what is the definition of appropriate? Like, what are you saying appropriate? What does that mean in your mind, appropriate? Like, maybe I'm misunderstanding that.
Amanda?
So the way I was kind of looking at it is like we have these books like extremely out and incredibly close, and then say Kite Runner and The Bluest Eye were books where we've struggled with some of that stuff where there's maybe cultural or historical relevance to the book, but then it's definitely one where it was written in a more crude or descriptive manner. Then you have books like Ugly Love and Court of Thorn and Roses, where in my mind these are 100% just enjoyable reads, but for adults. Like there's not the literacy value to them that you have in some of these other books. And so that's kind of where I was looking at. Like we would have a section for those books where you're like, be using them for school curriculums, or they might be ones where it's more higher level book reports or whatever, where you're supposed to have like a historical impact or something. Like, so that's kind of where I was looking at with this is like, we do have the books where we've all struggled with someone where it's like, hey, it's a great book, but there's this one scene. Where then if we had it in a library, in a section or whatever, kids in those older classes could use them for additional curriculum, additional whatever for their classes, but they're not just out there for the 14-year-olds. And that's what I, like for me, I was like, it was kind of like an obvious, there's a difference between this book to this book for me. And so that's kind of where I was leaning with like this writing the letter thing, is more like these ones where we've all kind of had that struggle with like, but yeah. So.
Okay, so maybe I
Point
misunderstood.
of order, we need to work through the chair for comments.
Yeah,
So make sure we're recognized.
Yeah, we're
I
still.
know, I'm the.
He's the taskmaster. He's the taskmaster.
I know that, get it, like, kind of going back to the original motion, I don't think, and we're not gonna make the decision. I think one of the concerns about the motion itself was that we would list our concerns, but also list solutions, and the solution part was the concern. And I think it's important that we list solutions, not because we're going to tell them, you know, how to do it or to have them available with, you know, possibly getting librarians in trouble, because we're talking really primarily about the books that we find are maybe inappropriate for youngers, but are, or maybe the vote is split, and we don't have unanimous consent. And I feel like the school board, and again, I feel like, it gave me the impression that they're kind of taking it from a court of law. And if you have a 7-3 vote, I don't think a court of law was going to find it inappropriate as a unanimous thing. So I think we need to navigate some of those ones that aren't clear, that some of us don't think violate the statute. Because we have those books that are being remanded to administration. So I'd like a solution for some of those. And again, it's just a list of solutions. I think it's good to have diverse solutions too. Ones that we bring to the table and we work together on, but we don't necessarily all have to say, yes, like this is the way to do it. Again, it's just ideas for people to consider, because we're the ones that are immersed in this, and we know better than the school board does at this point how this process goes and what we're doing to evaluate the books, and we're in that mindset. So I don't think, I don't know, I just want us to keep that in mind about the solutions. I'm not saying we all have to be unanimous on, we need a rated X section in our libraries, that's not a good solution, and I don't think we should write that.
Yeah, I think, I'll interject, and you guys, we're still in discussion of the motion, we need to vote, and we gotta get to our second book pretty soon. When you say solutions, I think at some point we have to clarify what that means, because what you're implying to me is you guys are going to write a letter and you're going to agree, but solutions is plural, and I can, being around you long enough at this point, you're not going to agree on all the solutions that you recommend. So I think we're going to need to decide, maybe that's a table, and we decide how you provide your feedback and your solutions to the board, and maybe there are solutions that are collectively from this group that you agree, but I can tell you Andrew's going to have some different solutions than Kara's going to have. But Andrew needs the ability to express those solutions just like you need that ability to express those solutions. So I do think that would be like a healthy wrap-up at the end of the school year. Think about what that process would look like. So, back to the discussion. Kim?
So, I guess possibly, personally, if we made a list of solutions, as you're saying, we all have different views on things, and then we're going to be signing this letter, I'd have a hard time probably signing a letter that maybe put solutions forth that I didn't feel comfortable with.
The letter could have the same vote.
Just raise your hand so we can call people.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The letter could have the same kind of a voting metric as what our books have, of 7 people wanted this and 3 didn't. That way, if you don't want to sign your name to it, then you don't have to.
You mean as far as the solution? I'm talking the solution part.
Sorry. Sure we're recognized and
Try to keep some structure. So I'm going to go to John, right? Then I'm going to go to Melinda.
John Deal. I'm not going to restate what's already been said, but I was going to, you took the words right out of my mouth when you spoke up about I wanted to open it up to Tin House and Us the magazine. So my view is really, it seems to me that suggestions, if we're going to do a draft or proposal, ought to be in the vein of guardrails.
Linda?
Melinda Dale, I'm going out on a limb here. I'm not in favor of the motion because the school board listens to these committee meetings. They're obviously very aware of what we talk about. They know what our concerns are, and I don't see a need to write a letter. That's my opinion.
Any more discussion? Andrew?
I would have to agree. I do believe that, our voices have been heard, whether it's through the recordings or anything like that. I think that if, and I understand, like, there's been books feel the same way, but at the same time, the way I'm looking at this is, does it meet the statute? Is it something that I feel is appropriate for a certain level? If these are my boundaries, I have to consider everyone in that high school. These are my boundaries. If it's appropriate for that place or not. If it's not, then it's not. If it is, then it is. And I do take those things into consideration. Sometimes it is tough. The thing that I guess is helpful to me is understanding that we're talking about what is appropriate in school libraries versus what is appropriate in, say, bookstores or public libraries or wherever the case may be, right? And so I don't believe I would be putting my name on any type of letter trying to get the school board to make decisions on this or that. I'm here to assess the books and give my best opinion on them.
I don't support this motion because I don't believe it's the purpose of this committee. I also don't support the idea of making decisions about books.
Nathan, did you?
I have to go. So,
Okay.
if anything, come on.
No, sorry, life happens.
Life happens. My vote is no on the motion, and all these books are gone.
Okay.
So, thank you. Have a good one.
Very safe. Okay,
One, two, three. Happen.
No, point of order, we have a motion on the floor.
is there any more discussion about the motion?
Hearing no more, all in favor of the motion as it is, raise your hand. That is 3 in favor, opposed to the motion, raise your hand. That is 6 opposed, motion fails. We move forward.
We move forward. Ugly Love is on the floor for discussion. Who would like to kick off? John, kick it off, please.
All I gotta say about this book is I stumbled across 2 teenage girls and asked if they read it, and they said, this is inappropriate. Absolutely inappropriate.
Hit a lot of hands here, Melody.
Yeah, it's not in high school. It's not suitable, but it doesn't matter if we kick it out. People, they're reading it. Just tell me that.
Amanda?
I'm just gonna say Colleen Hoover right there. I mean,
Yeah.
says it all. I would say definitely not appropriate for high school. Meets the statute. I mean, it's a great adult novel. I mean, I enjoy her writing, but it's just definitely not a kid book. Not a
Amber?
At our last meeting, as we were looking at all these Colleen Hoover books on the table, I was like, can we just remove the name? And since then, and there has been nothing yet to tell me no, personally, but I do have students who have told me that she does have other books that actually are like the newer books that actually might be appropriate for a different audience. And so, while at one point in time I was like, please don't make me read another one of these, maybe I was hasty in just wanting to blacklist the author entirely. I've been told.
Yes, Kim?
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. Yes, Kara, then Katie?
Sarah Byerly. I circled yes to all the questions, so this book does fit the statute. I made the mistake of reading this on my Kindle, and Kindle then sends you recommendations. So I don't, you just advise caution if you're going to do that.
I'm going to give you the stats for this book. This copyright 2014. The audience, it was written as an adult book, and the interest level is adult. There's no reading level, which is common for adult books. They don't put a reading level. Subject headings include love stories and air pilot fiction. And Common Sense Media did not have a review for this.
Any more discussion about Ugly Love? Andrew?
Not to be a broken record on Colleen Hoover books, but it is like incredibly disturbing that these books even found their way into our library. It is upsetting. Something else that's frustrating to me is I remember at the start of very beginning, our first meeting, it was mentioned that could almost guarantee that there is these books in our libraries that we need to be concerned about, and obviously there is, and I think, and I'm mentioning this for hopefully that the public understands this, that there are things that need to be looked at from time to time. And it is appropriate for us to be gathering to understand that, yeah, we need to be looking into the books that are in our libraries and seeing as to whether or not they're appropriate. It's important for parents to pay attention. And I'll say this one last time because I believe we are finally on the last Colleen Hoover book that was in the library. It's still odd to me that they have the exact same number of copies and number of checkouts on our records.
Yeah, any more discussion? And I would agree that everything in our system as being accountable to our community and taxpayers, there's nothing that shouldn't be evaluated and looked into at times. We look at everything, right? We look at assessments, we look at facilities, we look at safety, we look at curriculum, we look at textbooks. Dr. Everett's running a process where we're being accredited. Everything needs to go through a cycle of evaluations, right? All right, so Laura?
All right, so in terms of the vote, the first vote is whether or not this book meets the statute for indecency. Is it my understanding that Nathaniel Buck, his vote was yes on this as he was exiting the room, or should I put that right in front of us?
I think it was
All right.
I mean,
Just for transparency's sake, I want to make sure, Okay, so that's a yes from Mr. Buck. Kara Byerly. Yes, that it meets the statute, okay. Amanda Cottle.
Yes, it meets the statute.
Katie Clark.
Ugly Love.
Ugly Love. It's an adult book.
It meets the statute for
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Katie. Melinda Dale.
Yes.
John Deal.
Yes.
Amber Ranella.
Yes.
Andrew Shane.
Yes.
Nicole Smith is not here tonight. Kim Swanson.
Yes.
And Melody Wright.
Yes.
And the next is the recommendation, once again, from least restrictive to most restrictive. Number 1 is retain at all school libraries. 2, retain only at high school libraries. 3, retain only at middle and high school libraries. 4, remove from all school libraries. Nathaniel Buck's vote was 4. Is that the consensus of the group?
Right.
Okay, good. Thank you. Kara Byerly.
4.
Amanda Cottle.
4.
Katie Clark. Linda Dale. 4. John Deal.
4.
Amber Ranella.
4.
Andrew Shane.
4.
Kim Swanson.
4.
And Melody Wright.
4.
This is a unanimous one, folks. We have 10 that need to say it meets the statute and 10 votes of removal to remove from all school libraries.
The Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah Moss is on the, Sarah J, is it Sarah J? Sarah J. Moss. Who wants to kick off this book?
I will.
Yes, Melody.
So Sarah J. Moss came on the landscape back with Grown Up Glass, I want to say in 2010 on Book Talk. She was a rising star with that series, and then came out with Court of Thorns and Roses in, I forget when. It's been a while ago. 2015. So she has a huge following among a certain subset of readers, and my daughter included. So I just want to put that in context, that pretty much every high school girl
who has any sort of reading, because there's not a lot of them that still read, but the ones that do have probably read this book. So, we are getting so caught up in the minutia, and I understand that that is our job, but remember that kids who are readers are going to find the book, they're going to read it. So you're worried about removing it from all school libraries, it's still out there. They're going to read it. If they're readers, they're going to read it. Speaking as one who read a lot of them. Told me not to read it. What was that? It was a heat-seeking missile. So just keep that in mind.
Amanda?
So I mean, again, it's one of those books that I definitely enjoyed it as an adult. I mean, it's my sort of genre and everything, so I mean, I totally was like, this is awesome. That being said, we were on this board for a reason, and so yes, they will read it. I mean, that's like saying, kids who want to try alcohol, are you going to give it to them because they're going to get it elsewhere? Or are you going to still not give it to them? And yes, they may get it elsewhere, but you're still setting those boundaries, you're setting those limits, and you're providing them a proper environment where they should be developing and growing. Where this book, it's not a high school book, in my opinion. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed it as an adult. It definitely was my type of genre. I mean, it's one where I would pick it up, read it, but it is not a book that is appropriate for kids under 16 for sure.
Andrew?
I would have to agree with Andrew Shane. Every time I hear that, they're going to get it, they're going to read it. If it's something that an adult says, like, you shouldn't, there's, hopefully a very large amount of parents that tell their kids, like, you're not going to drink alcohol in this house. And, do they? They may or they may not. But the fact is that you set a standard, right? Kids need those standards in order, and it helps with development. You see it throughout all kinds of psychological studies that having standards, having boundaries is important for children. And it's important for us as a school district, in my opinion, to have those type of boundaries and those type of standards as well. And so I do think that this is more of an adult book and not
Yeah, so I went through the questions, and for question 1, I answered yes. That does, there's several of those categories. For 2, I circled yes, that it appeals to the period interest. I went to 3, and I think this is the question that I struggled with a little bit because of the literary value. I mean, it's a very well-told story. I don't think we can doubt that. It's very engaging. I think this, the details of the book, the genre of the book, that kind of mystical world, it's very intriguing, and I think I have a hard time with that question, whether to answer yes or no, that it has literary or artistic value. Because I think that it does, but this is one of those things as well where I think those scenes that it does feature can push the envelope, but should it be available to our older kids in high school? I do think that, they could have access to this book. So I'm not totally sure.
That's Amber.
Amber and Ella. It was interesting this last month because, as you pointed out, these are books that kids have in my classroom right now. They didn't get them from our school libraries, and they didn't expect to get them from our school libraries. They're actually, when I mentioned, I asked them, I'm like, oh, do you think that should be a school library book? They were like, no. They really didn't expect to see them in our libraries. And actually, one kid I'm thinking of was a freshman, very advanced reader, but read this book and was like, oh, it's really good. And then got to this book and he was like, you read it as well, but I'm going to focus on the one at hand. It was uncomfortable for him that we were reading the same book. So I made it one step further than Kara in the sense that I got to 3 and I could actually even maybe say, I like to do this in as a whole. What dominated as a whole, and do I still hold those sex scenes that maybe when I was reading them were definitely, like, do I still hold them as with the book as a whole? And I didn't. I got to question 4, and that's where I was like, well, here's where my struggle lies. Do I think that it is patently offensive to the prevailing standards of the adult community who hold effect was suitable for persons 16 or age? And I believe that that is where I found my no. I could answer yes up until that point.
Linda?
Melinda Dale, I can't call this indecent material. I think it's too well written. There's some strong female main character. There are a lot of things to recommend this book. I think it's very possible that a 15-year-old would read it. So to me, there are things that would merit having it in a high school library.
John,
I just want to go back to the same old theme that just keeps coming back. And just like you, I got to number 4, the same exact thing. And the problem is, if you're 17, it's okay. Unfortunately, we're making a decision about high school, which is also under 16. It's just unfair. Yes, we can act like it's not a big deal, and it's all about let the parents decide. Okay, and that's just a bad response, to be honest. This has got to get fixed. It's unfair not to address it and fix it. Great story. Burn chapter 27 and it's okay.
Katie, yeah, Katie.
So, Court of Thorn and Roses was published in 2015. This is a book in a series. In the district, we had 6 copies, and those 6 copies about 79 times since 2016 when it was first in the library. This book has won 4 awards. 2015, it won the Best Young Adult Books of 2015. It was on multiple Best of lists. In 2021, it won Best Fantasy Series and Best Young Adult Romance and Best Fantasy Book Everyone Should Read. Audience is young adult. The reading level is 6.1 and the interest level is 9 through 12. The subject headings are blessings and curse, fairies, action and adventure, fantasy and magic, love and romance, and mythical creatures. I found positive reviews from Kirkus that said Moss's expertly drawn multi-dimensional characters and their nuanced interpersonal dynamics. Hornbook said Moss weaves folk and fairy tales from multiple origins, fairy lore, adventure, and romance into an exciting new YA fantasy series. School Library Journal said this was for 9th grade and up. It said it's good for fans of Moss' previous books who are looking for a more mature read.
5 seconds.
Booklist said grades 10 through 12.
Amanda.
Second comment. So, looking at our list here too, so I know we're only supposed to vote a book at a time, but the way I look at it too is this is a series. We put one book in and then exclude the rest. Because this one, yeah, it was, mellow. But the thing is then you have the rest that aren't. Also, 3 of the books are in middle schools, or were in middle schools. That, 100% in my mind, was not a good choice. So even if we are doing the debate, I still don't feel like it's appropriate for high school at all, but the fact that we had it in 3 of the books in middle schools is not a good choice to begin with either. And I have to look at this book, because it is a series, we can't allow one book knowing we're going to exclude the rest of them, because then again it's like cracking the door where it's like, hey, you can have this, but then we're not going to give you the dessert after or whatever. You can have your dinner but no dessert. You can't give them one without the rest. It's just, especially for kids that are readers. It is a well-written book. They're not going to stop at 1.
Kara, then, Ken, did you have your hand raised? No? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda, for saying that. Honestly, that was my exact thought in my head was, okay, I don't know if we should think about the second book when deciding on this book, but that thought had crossed my mind because I'm leaning toward no on the second book. And that would cause me, it also caused me to say, I don't know if I would introduce this then for the exact same reasons you stated.
Yes. Andrew, then
Sorry,
Melody.
just have a rebuttal. You can go ahead and ask.
My question is, we have to evaluate each book separately. Do you see? So I was stuck between no and okay, but I get where you guys are coming from. I don't know if that is okay to. Okay, well, because this is, then this is too. When content.
Yeah, so I think point of information is we really have to, and it's an interesting nuance. I appreciate that you brought it up, but we still got to take each book one at a time.
And Dr. Ainsworth, if I could add, during our time, please remember you have 90 seconds your first round, 60 seconds. Your conversation needs to be focused on your thoughts related to the statute. We need to avoid the debate back and forth. It's not a time for debate. It's your opinion based on your read of the book related to the statute. So I urge the group to stay focused on that.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I just wanted, something I forgot, John Deal. I checked this out with kids too. There's lots of kids reading this.
Andrew?
Okay, yeah, real quick. One thing, Amanda, I like what you had to say. And I understand where you're also coming from on, this one is a little bit more mild. The next one, they just, I will say on the literary value, the artistic value, what are we saying here? The literary value for a person under the age of 16 years old, right? James Cameron directed a movie, Titanic, right? Had obviously a whole lot of people that loved it. The charts, right? But was it appropriate for somebody under the age of, I believe it's 17 to go to the movies or whatever? Our rating said no, it is not, right? And I believe that's what we're saying here is that for under the age of 16, are we saying that has literary value, that has sex scenes, and that has all these different things that aren't appropriate for, okay, yeah, that's not your literary value there. One last thing I'll say is, John, I totally get where you come from on the 16 years and under, but at the same time, you could vote that this does meet the statute and then does not, but could be retained at high schools.
Any more discussion? Okay, looks like we're going to put to a vote, Laura.
Okay, so going down our list, first of all, does this meet the Alaska statute for indecency? And this is the book.
Court of Thorns.
Sorry, I have some abbreviations going on over here. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah Moss. Nathan Buck, his vote was yes. Kara Byerly?
No.
Amanda Cottle?
Yes.
Katie Clark?
No.
Melinda Dale?
No.
John Deal?
Yes.
Amber Ranella?
No.
Andrew Shane?
Yes.
Kim Swanson?
Yes.
And Melody Wright?
No.
Right, our next vote is from least restrictive to most restrictive. 1 is retain at all school libraries, 2 retain only at high school libraries, 3 retain only at middle and high school libraries, and 4 remove from all school libraries. Nathaniel Buck's vote was 4. Is that everybody's understanding as he was exiting as well? Okay, 4, thank you. Kara Byerly? Amanda Cottle? Katie Clark? 2. Melinda Dale? 2. Deal?
2. I'm exercising your guidance.
Amber Ranella?
See how well it works.
I'm gonna take the opposite, I'm gonna go 4.
I'm proud of you.
Andrew Shane?
4.
Kim Swanson?
4.
Melody Wright?
2.
Right, so in terms of meeting the other statute for indecency, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 and 5, you said? Okay, I trust your counting.
Same on
That's what I have to.
Same on the next.
Same on, okay, and we had 5 votes to remove from all school libraries and 5 votes to retain only at high school libraries.
Okay, we transition to more Sarah J. Moss, A Court of Mist and Fury. Is on the floor for discussion. Who wants to kick it off? Ken, and then Katie?
Just feel like, I know that the sexual scenes definitely violate state statute.
Katie?
Court of Mist and Fury, published in 2016. This is book 2 in the series. We had 6 copies in our district, 79 checkouts. It was cataloged in 2016. The audience is young adult. The reading level is 5.9. The interest level for the publisher is 10 through 12th grade. Awards in 2016. This won the Best Young Adult Fantasy and Science Fiction. It also was nominated for Best of the Best and the 23 Best Fantasy Book Series to Read. Subject headings: courts and courtiers, fairies, fantasy, magic, good and evil, love and romance. Kirkus reviews said 14 and up. School Library Journal said 10th grade and up. Booklist said 10th through 12th grade. Common Sense Media gave it a 3 out of 5 for positive messages, 3 out of 5 for positive role models, and it said, is it any good? It said there was violence, there was ethical hand-wringing, emotional angst, and fairy sex.
Kara?
Sarah Byerly, I answered yes to all of the questions, so I do think it meets the statute. Yeah, this book was really graphic. But it goes right along with the story, and as an adult, you know, there's a good storyline, so, but I don't think it's appropriate for the kids, so I'll be voting to remove it.
Any other discussion? No other discussion, we will move to vote.
All right, Nathaniel Buck, his vote was yes for indecency. And again, this vote is for whether or not it meets the statute for indecency. Kara Byerly,
Yes?
Amanda Cottle,
Yes.
Katie Clark,
Sorry, I did not finish this book.
that's okay.
So
That sounds
Katie,
great.
you'll need to have a vote by the next meeting for us.
Okay,
Okay?
I didn't finish a few of them.
We've got a bunch of Katie votes coming at the next meeting.
We still appreciate you being here, Katie.
Thank you.
No, you're doing what you can here. Thank you.
I'm doing my best.
Yes, yep, that's, life happens.
600 pages.
Melinda Dale,
No.
John Deal,
I'm in the same boat. I'm halfway through the book, so I'm not gonna vote.
okay,
I have abstained. I will have the.
Next meeting, thanks, John.
thank you for that. We appreciate you being here still. Amber Ranella,
Yes.
Andrew Shane,
Yes.
Kim Swanson,
Yes.
Melody Wright.
Yes.
All right, the next is the recommendations. 1, retain at all school libraries. 2, retain only at high school libraries. 3, retain only at middle and high school libraries. And 4, remove from all school libraries. I should have this memorized by now. For our radio audience, though. Nathaniel Buck, I believe his vote was 4, correct? Yep,
Correct.
thank you. Kara Byerly,
4.
Amanda Cottle,
4.
and Katie, no problem. We'll get that next time. Melinda Dale.
2.
And John, same with you, we'll get that from you next time. Amber Ranella.
4.
Andrew Shane.
4.
Kim Swanson.
4.
And Melody Wright.
4.
Thank you very much. Our totals, Reese, do you have those 1, 2, 3,
7 to 1.
7 to 1, okay?
7 to 1, yes, it violates the statute.
Okay.
Also 7 to 1, 7 removed from all school libraries, 1 retain at high school, all libraries except high school libraries. Retain only at high school libraries.
Okay,
So then we'll need 2 votes from the abstain, and then we'll need Nicole's votes as well.
yep, that's
Okay.
great.
Okay, our last book, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, is on the floor for discussion. Who would like to start? Yes, Kara?
Kara Byerly. Yeah, this was exciting to read. You know, like having been so immersed, like in the musical and the music, it's like nostalgic. And then there's a movie coming out, so it was very fun to read. Going through the questions, one, yes, it depicts sexual penetration and some exhibitionism, and then for question number 2, I marked no. I don't think this book appeals to the prurient interest in children under the age of 16. I think that there's so much to this story that's not sex. You know, that's not what this book is about. It's very, very brief, like the scenes that describe those. Definitely a mature book, and it's one of those books that I think mature readers would take to, but somebody who's not as maybe proficient in reading or doesn't really like reading, this is going to be a hard book for them to get started in. But it's a great story. It's super creative, and then you think about The Wizard of Oz and just the fact that the author could go back and create something kind of based on that. And then I had a cool version on my Kindle that kind of talked about the author's process to writing this book and thinking about when they were a child and how they created like play scenes and what they did with their imagination. So that was really neat. It wasn't a part of this book, so I don't know what will be available in the library, but I think I'll be voting to retain it at high school.
Buddy?
I read this book back when it came out, and it was one of the first that kicked off telling a story from the point of view of a villain. So those of you who read, seen the movie Maleficent and all of that, this was what kicked that off. So it's iconic for that reason. I was surprised that this was tagged as young adult. I feel like it's not to do anything with the content, but the way that it's written is so intricate and so, the world building is so precise. A lot of times it reminded me of like a space opera. Do you know what I'm saying? Where it had so many characters and so many things are going on in various places. I don't know of a child that I would recommend it to, not because it's not a good book, but because it's just not something that they're developmentally ready to dive into. And I'm not speaking to the statute here, I'm just saying keeping track of everybody and having the background to follow it with your imagination, being able to build the world in your head. I don't believe it meets the statute, but I would love to hear why it's classified YA. Just curious.
Katie?
We had 2 copies in our school district. They had 17 checkouts. This book was copyrighted 1995, but we didn't get it in our school district until 2007. This book from the publisher is an adult book. It does not have a book level, and I could not find an interest level for this, so you would assume it's also adult. It has won an award, the Voice of Young Advocates, in 1996. The subject headings are witches fiction, fantasy fiction, fairy tale, folk tales, legends, and mythology. I found one favorable review written in 1995. Books have multiple reviews, multiple years. Really a review when it first comes out.
More discussion? Yes, Amber?
It's going to be tedious, and I agree in that manner. I think it is written for an adult audience or adult reader, or a very good reader, which might be a fantasy reader, just a person who that's their genre of choice, and so that's where their proficiency lies. As it turns out, that is not necessarily my strength, and so it was tedious. I don't believe that it violated state statute. Again, I have a tendency to read, to take the books as a whole and then go backwards, and I would be curious to hear maybe what the concerns are, and then I would probably go like, oh yeah, maybe that was a thing, but when taken as a whole, I don't believe that it violates state statute, and without a little bit more of like, remember chapter 27 or whatever, I have no flags at all for this.
Ms. Amanda?
I feel like the book had a few uncomfortable moments. There was an oil rubbing scene, and then at the beginning I felt like with the mom, the husband, and then the guy that came in, and at the end of the book they kind of tied it back in with the dad saying they both Right. So I mean, there's definitely some stuff in there. I might say retain at high school, but I also feel like it kind of. I'm not 100% sure where I'll vote on the statute yet, but I mean, there was definitely some scenes where I was just kind of like, between the focus with having it was a harder read for me too. So between having to focus on that and just some of the scenes, I was kind of like, okay, like what was the purpose of that? Like why does it have to be in the story? And then just, yeah, so I feel like not a lot of it was very obvious, but I do feel like there was like the undertone of just some stuff where you're just like, okay, that's odd.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, there for a minute there I was wondering if we had read the same book, because I do feel like there was I was hoping to be able to, I wish, so with 5 books I was trying to pound through it with audiobooks, and then some of it was reading and some of it was not, but I wish I could find the scene in here, but I recall there being a scene with the guy with 2 male members, or basically, and you guys remember that scene? I don't feel like going through all of it because it was rather, but it just, that was first thing that hit me was good grief, and then there are more scenes throughout. There was actually somebody who was started out with the YouTube thing or whatever because I will look up different reviews on what people thought of it so I can get different perspectives. And one of the ladies was like, yeah, I originally couldn't believe that they were going to talk about this book being horrible because I had seen the musical and I thought it was amazing. And then she read the book and realized there's stuff in here that was not depicted in the musical, right? So it's just, for me, I believe it does meet the statute, and I'll be voting.
Yes, Melinda.
Well, I think there's no doubt, Melinda Dale, there's no doubt that this is a dark fairy tale. And there's no doubt that, I agree with Melody, probably most high school students are not going to run over to this book and want to check it out. If they do, they'll read a little bit and say, what in the world am I reading? But I really had to reread several parts in the discussions about good versus evil, and there's a lot to this book. I don't think it violates the statute. Taken as a whole, I think it's got value, and so.
More, Kim?
Yeah, I just, I can't say that it doesn't violate state statute, and some of these books I just don't understand where people get the mindset to write them. I don't know how you sleep at night writing some of it. Sorry. You make a lot of money. It's all about the money. For me, it's not about the money, it's about the kids. There you go.
Any more discussion about Wicked? Okay, I believe we're ready to put Wicked to a vote.
All right, the first vote is, does it violate the statute for indecency? Nathaniel Buck was yes. Sarah Byerly?
No?
Amanda Cottle?
Yes.
Katie Clark? That's okay. Okay, we'll get your vote next time, Katie. Thank you for being here. Belinda Dale?
No.
John Deal?
Yes.
Editorialized by John as he votes, okay.
We do have a disclaimer. There's a disclaimer.
Amber Ranella?
No.
Andrew Shane?
Yes.
Swanson?
Yes.
And Melody Wright?
No.
All right, and the recommendations: 1, retain at all school libraries; 2, retain only at high school libraries; 3, retain only at middle and high school libraries; or 4, remove from all school libraries. Nathaniel Buck was 4, removed from all school libraries. Kara Byerly?
2?
Amanda Cottle?
2?
We will get your vote next time. Melinda Dale?
2.
John Deal?
2.
Amber Ranella?
2.
Andrew Shane?
4.
Kim Swanson,
4.
and Melody Wright.
2.
And Reese, if you'll help me with the numbers.
On the first vote, on whether or not it violates statute, the vote was 5-4. Yes, it does violate the statute. Received 5 votes, 4 votes for no, it does not violate the statute.
And then in terms of recommendations, we had 3 who voted to remove from all school libraries, and 6 who voted to retain only at high school libraries. Was that your numbers as well? Okay,
Correct.
thank you, Reese.
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to add the opportunity to vote on books that were abstained from the last meeting.
You can like bring that forth at this time?
Yes.
Okay, good job taking charge with your motions, Kara. Okay,
Is there a second?
so
And
just,
point of information, do we need a motion? I believe the motion was passed that the vote would occur. So,
Okay,
and I know it's new, but
agenda.
just part of the process that we.
Yeah, I think the process is there.
Yeah, I guess
That
we
that you would have a, you couldn't,
Opportunity.
yeah, so you couldn't vote this time because of life circumstances, you would vote the next meeting, but obviously the next meeting we'd have to vote some time. So for example, John needs some time to be able to explain his position, the vote, right? Drew?
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about being able to vote on the books that we reviewed last month now?
No, so last month we passed that we could vote later on the next meeting for a book that we didn't read. I did not read Identical, so I'm hoping for the opportunity to do that, and I just don't see it on the agenda.
Yes, so it'll be on the agenda, the next meeting.
but this is,
I know. Yes.
So we're not gonna do it today.
No, we're not gonna do it today.
Okay.
Unless you wanna make a motion to do it today.
Well, I did.
Oh, I wasn't thinking, thank you for the, yeah, I wasn't thinking specifically your,
I'm sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
So no, it's good. So we second, any discussion?
to be clear, the motion is to amend the agenda to include an opportunity to vote from missed votes from the last meeting.
Yes, following the books to be discussed.
Got it, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Wait, do we need to vote because it's a motion?
Vote
on the motion?
Bathroom break.
Yes.
Let's just go take a bathroom break and then we'll come back, yeah. Okay? 5 minutes, because we still have to select books.
Can we do the meeting now?
We could, yeah.
Oh, is it because we're gonna talk about, we only have 2 weeks? We need to talk about that?
Yes, we're running out of time, yeah.
Yeah, I misunderstood.
You're talking about her specific book.
Part of the process, because it was passed last time.
I forgot she had.
Oh, that's smart. I kind of want them to not like me. No, it's just, they will pick out. Oh, isn't that the truth? Yes. It doesn't take much.
What kind of dog do you have?
Good work. Done.
Thank you for reading those.
Okay, now we got 10 minutes.
Get it every school board meeting. Thank you for reading those.
Yeah. There's never enough time.
I saw your staff.
There's always something to do.
That's incredible. Yeah, you guys need to pick. I mean, it was the appropriate order, I suppose, but yeah, but still. Oh, that was brutal. Yeah, that is brutal. A lot of reading.
Hands down.
It was a lot.
So smart.
I want to go skinny.
Most of the time, it's not.
The borough
moved all the Cordup ones out. The protagonist is 19.
He's right. He's smart. Almost too smart.
No longer, they're no longer the younger adults.
He did.
That's why they did it. That's why they did it.
Hands down.
I'm picking books. I haven't read this. I want to read Red Hood. I'm guessing it's a Little Red Riding Hood version, right? I mean,
They have lots of things.
So,
yeah. I haven't read in years, and so for the
I'm sure I'll know that.
but I'm voting just because.
as you know.
Yeah, only 2 weeks. I would say 3. That's why we did 5, so we can still stay on. Yeah. No, because none of these, I don't recognize any of these.
Flawed process. We have to execute a flawed process.
Well, then maybe.
Right.
The other stuff.
Yeah, this one is.
You just gotta get that was the other piece of the second half.
Yeah, go.
That statutes, when's the last time someone made it?
Yeah, my daughter would be like, can't read anything. I know we're supposed to put on an individual, but I'm like, this is a book where I was like, why did I
This one is about
Yeah,
it's about her sister.
yeah.
It's about what's her name? Sister.
I would vote for.
So the question is, what's changed? I would argue 50 years, half a century.
One of them is because I remember what you're talking about.
Silver Flames. Let's do Silver Flames about her sister. Silver Flames. She has a baby. Did I spoil that for you?
I'm on this one.
Well, that's just a vote. Anyone started to.
Yeah.
Here for like about 4 hours.
Yeah, go ahead and that's vote. we went to the bathroom and so then everybody started to vote. So just get it done.
It's about stalking everyone else. Yeah, it's the movie You, and I think what doesn't who plays.
None of them are right now, aren't they? Because they all got pulled.
This is about.
Well, that's like all the Colleen Hoover ones. It was one copy, challenged, and pulled.
There were never.
Okay.
So how do you even know about the ballot? How did they even end up on the challenge book list then? Didn't we ask that at the beginning of the year too? Like to get. Because I was curious about it too. Like if you had one parent that like just was like hold these books or whatever, or if it was like because if you had the same name come up a bunch of times, it's kind of like suspicious. But then it makes me interested. Like I'm interested. Like the Colleen Hoover one's also very curious because it's like so one librarian probably bought a copy of a bunch of them. And then did she read them? And then be like, oops, or, but then why wouldn't she just put a note in hey, don't order more of these versus where did that come from? Because you'd think a librarian has to order it. So obviously someone ordered one copy of them.
I'll say this.
Who read them?
Professional librarian.
Well, I agree with you.
Here's the solution.
Yeah. But I also know a lot of our librarians aren't librarians. Because, yeah. I used to tell my mom, because I have a degree, an early childhood education degree, if I had gone into teaching versus homeschooling, I used to say my dream would have been to be a librarian for a few years because I love books. And because that's how most librarians are right now, is they're not actual librarians, it's teachers who will rotate through for a few years for something different. So that was my dream if I had ever gone. But now I'm now I homeschool and do whatever, and I do. But it's just very different.
No, not on the table right now. We have mini novels and verse though.
I'm not voting for any novels and verse.
What?
I'm not voting for any tricks.
Are we getting close?
In this one. 3 stickies only, right? Because we did 5, so
Yep.
we could stay on track, and
Yep,
we're back in
3.
2 weeks.
Yep.
I voted. I used
Something
my
more-
stickies up.
Something more manageable.
So it looks like it's 1, 2,
Give me something sticky.
Yeah, give yourself a little break here.
Add mine to the
Sorry, I forgot.
You're fine. It's kind of confusing, and I don't really know what I'm doing, so.
So we'll get back and then
I have to
we'll
speak to
talk
it,
about
but
these and you can vote for your, yeah.
sounds good.
Yep.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the value systems. Interesting.
Linda. Yeah, you're getting to the point
Just
where
just give me my number.
yeah, just
Those are both the same, it's different, but that book should.
okay. Looks like we're ready.
I do remember now that you said that. Like,
What I do is I do
drive right by.
robotics and software and 3D printing. And then Academy Charter, and boy, you used to find me all over. Running.
Oh, I thought you were gonna use the new phone.
I would really know a lot. I'm trying to separate. I really am. I've got a new
Over here that I've been, I appreciate that.
I can I got about 60.
Falling apart, and then I got halfway through, honestly.
Understand free.
Probably needs to.
I'll put that in there and yes, there we go.
Have fun.
You want me to pick this?
No, sir, reshelf.
Yeah. Let's go.
Okay, if we can get everybody back, we'll
Excuse me.
we'll have Kara take her vote on was it identical. Identical. She'll give us her rationale, and then we'll record it.
For technicality's sake, Laura Richardson, for people listening there, do we need to vote on the amendment to the agenda, or should we just, in case there's a Robert's Rules of Order,
Yeah.
you're listening in right now and dying a little inside because we skipped a process. The
I think
process.
we're fine.
Okay.
I'll take the
Okay,
yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you, though.
Okay, so the purpose here is, Kara, you had, was it just identical or?
Just
remind me?
identical.
And this was from February?
This is from March. Wait, is this our March meeting?
This is our March meeting.
Okay.
So February. Yeah. So Kara has the floor.
Thank you.
There we go. It is that one.
Yeah, so I read Identical, which I actually started reading a different book by Ellen Hopkins, and it was about two sisters, and I got halfway through, and the cover started falling off, so I took it off. It was a different book. And the other book is not on our list, which is really frustrating, so that's okay. I didn't get ahead, but that's all right. I got through Identical. Hard to get through, and I'm not looking forward to the rest, but I answered question 1. I circled yes, because it features like A, B, and C on the list. And then, does it appeal to the current interest? I said yes, I think it does, like the scenes in the book. And then I got to know, again, I was thinking about the value for children under the age of 16. And I was leaning toward yes. And my comments were, this book is troubling in many ways. It focuses on the topic of incest and PTSD, with the fallout and behaviors related to that. This story is mature, but I do think it would be should be retained at the high school level. So I will give you my votes. I'm voting that no, it does not violate the statute, and it should be number 2, retained at high school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then just so for point of clarity, what we'll do moving forward with votes where there was folks who were abstaining, I'm going to add that to the agenda where we're voting. So when we get in our rhythm of voting for these books, then we'll finish up with Katie's votes, John's votes, potentially Nicole's votes. Does that work for everybody? Andrew?
Can I make a request when we get the other votes from those who either abstained or were present and voted later? Could we get the total of those votes to add it all together?
Yeah.
So into that, and tell me if this is satisfactory to you, Dr. Ainsworth, but on the library committee website, that's being updated, like tomorrow it'll be updated, probably, if not tomorrow, probably by Monday. And with the board recommendations as well as any updates or changes here.
Yeah, thank you, Laura.
That satisfies me.
Okay. All right, so are we ready to announce?
Yeah, it's only 3.
2 weeks, yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's short turnaround.
Thank you. You're exactly right.
Okay, so for the record, Red Hood, Elena Arnold, A Court of Frost and Starlight, another Sarah J. Maas book, and we will stay in the Sarah J. Maas genre. A Court of Wings and Ruin. Those will be the 3 books. You guys have a combination of big and skinny books here. So with that said, our next meeting is April 11th, and then May 9th, June 13th. A quick reminder to turn in your rubrics, if you can get those to Laura. Are there any concluding comments? Yes.
Just a question. That May 9th meeting is going to be during graduation week, is that correct?
I believe graduation week is the following week.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
Wasilla?
You should really know that. It is during the fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch, so good.
Okay, Melinda?
Melinda Dale, I don't know if everyone is aware that one of our committee members received an honor today. And I don't have the right terminology in my brain. Would you, now that you've taken a bite, would you share what your honor, what it was
I
for?
was just recognized in the Frontiersman, I think, just staff member of the week.
Staff
Oh,
member.
nice. Awesome.
Very
Awesome.
nice.
Any other concluding comments?
Yeah, just twin granddaughters. That's
So that was last month.
Well, that's another,
That is, thank you.
Usually we start class with good things.
I like it.
I like how we're ending with it. Yeah.
That's
I like to start old business.
Anything else? All right, meeting adjourned. Drive safe. Thank you again for your time. The sunshine is out. Go enjoy it.
Not what it